Can everyone hear me okay? Great. Looks good. Okay, so I'm really pleased to be here in Berlin. It was a bit of a happy coincidence that I was able to come by the last minute, and it happened to be a free slot. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about our project at Planet Labs to image the entire planet every single day using a huge fleet of satellites. And this has been a project that we've been doing for the last 3 years. And we've got some special announcement, which is really why I'm here in Berlin, to be telling you right at the end. And you'll get to understand why it's important by the time I finish. So I wanted to start here with this little thing that we call the Earth. You may have heard of it before. You may have even seen this picture in particular because this picture was taken when the Apollo astronauts were hurtling around the moon in 1972. And it's a rather iconic photo because it was credited with helping to birth the green movement because it showed the Earth in its fragile environment in the vacuum of space, and it prompted people to think about how we needed to take care of the planet. However, although this image is beautiful, it's rather lacking because it's old, and in fact, satellite imagery of the planet today is typically very old and out of date. So imagery that you find online is typically 3 to 5 years old. And whilst that's really awesome to have, the Earth is constantly changing with human activities in particular, and you can't fix what you can't see. So if you can't see the changes that are happening, you can't do anything about it. And me and my co-founders of our company, Chris and Robbie and I, we were brainstorming, what would it be like if we could image every single point on the Earth's surface every day, take a picture of every single point on the Earth's surface, and provide that data to be accessible for everyone? What would that do? And we thought about the fact that we could track deforestation in the Amazon. Today, if you take images every few years, you wake up at the end of the year and you go, oh, there's a big hole in the Amazon. Great. But you can't do anything about it. Whereas if you could take images every single day, you could actually catch people doing the illegal logging whilst they're in the act. Similarly, we could catch people doing illegal fishing. We could also help with things like agriculture to improve agricultural yield. See, with these satellites that we launch, we can tell the biomass in every pixel so that we can see how much crop is being grown, and we can help people improve agricultural yield. And the people in mapping companies want more up-to-date maps. There were lots of different use cases for imaging the whole planet every day. And so we set ourselves on that task. And so I'm first going to show you this. So this is, if maybe just, there we go. So this is our mission statement: image the whole world every day and provide universal access to that data. And this video, if you can just go to the next slide and just press play on that video, shows you how we're going to do it. Essentially, we're going to put 150 satellites into one orbit plane. They all point down onto the Earth, taking pictures, and they essentially take a strip of pictures along the ground. By the time the next satellite comes along, though, the Earth has rotated just a little bit, and then it takes a strip of images just next to the previous strip. And they keep on doing this. It sort of ends up like being a line scanner for the planet. So with 150 of these, we can scan every point on the Earth's surface every day. And basically, it's because the Earth is doing the work. The orbit actually just stays fixed with respect to the sun, and the Earth rotates underneath every 24 hours. So this thing scans the Earth every 24 hours. So what was standing in our way? Why couldn't we just simply put up 150 satellites and do this? Well, the main reason was that satellites today are big, expensive, and slow. So this is a typical satellite. This was launched the year before last by NASA. This is the Landsat satellite. And satellites like these have done a tremendous job in helping us to understand our planet. But it's not really a scalable model to put up a lot of them to scan the whole planet on a regular basis. This one weighs 3 tons. It cost $855 million. And you can see from the people just how big it is. If we wanted to launch 150 satellites, we had to make them much smaller than that. And so we set about doing this. And we left NASA. Me and my co-founders were at NASA building satellites there, and started building satellites in our garage using consumer electronics as the heart of the satellites. And we started putting them in space, and they worked just fine. And I'm going to show you some of the images, but let me first show you what the satellite looks like. So these are what our satellites look like. They're 10 by 10 by 30 centimeters in size. They weigh 4 kilograms, so they're about 1,000th of the mass of the previous satellite that I just showed you. By making them so small, we can launch them in large numbers on any one launch vehicle and then get up to this 150 satellites that we need to scan the whole planet every day. So inside there is a tremendous amount of technology. This gives you a rough idea. Essentially, it's mainly a telescope with a camera on it. It's a bit like putting 150 webcams in space, but they need some fairly nice optics. So it's mainly a set of optics. In fact, 90% of the volume is the optics payload. But in and around that, we've stuffed a tremendous amount of capabilities. So we've had to build our own radio systems from scratch. So they transmit in S and X band to get the data down to the ground. We've got some of the fastest processors in any satellites in orbit. And even though these are 1,000th of the mass of the one that I just showed you, they've got 10 times the resolving power. So the imagery on the ground is 10 times better resolution than that big one that I showed you previously. And it sounds somewhat surprising, but we're just utilizing the latest generation of technology and stuffing it into these little boxes. So that's what our satellites look like. We use this thing called Agile aerospace to keep on keeping them up to date. So we've actually had 8 launches of our satellites over the last 2 years, taking 87 satellites into orbit. So roughly 10 each launch. And with those, but every time we do a launch, we put the latest technology into our satellite. We keep it up to date with the latest sensors, the latest processors, the latest hard drives. So for example, the last satellite that we just launched on a SpaceX rocket, we included a tech demo satellite that had a double the field of view optics. We had 3 times the number of pixels on the CCD. We had double the hard drive space. And we call it strapping space to Moore's law. You know, we want to firmly stick satellites onto Moore's law, which you might sound is a perfectly obvious, seem like a perfectly obvious thing to do, but the space industry has been typically very conservative in terms of its risk approach. And instead, we just put the latest technology in and put up more satellites than we need. And if one of them fails, it's not the end of the world. We have lots of redundancy in our satellite operations. We then had to figure out how to manufacture large numbers of these satellites, and so we redesigned them for manufacturability, and we build all of our satellites in downtown San Francisco. Few people are aware of this, but more satellites get built in San Francisco than any other city on the planet, but they're very, very much smaller than anyone else's satellites, so they compensate maybe in that way. And then we launched them by the dozen, and we've had launches roughly every 3 months over the last 2 years. And we're very lucky because just this week we have 14 more satellites being deployed from the International Space Station where they were launched via a SpaceX rocket earlier in the year. And this picture was taken just yesterday by the astronaut that's on board the space station, Scott Kelly. And we asked him if he could take some pictures of our satellites being deployed, and he kindly did. And one thing that's neat is that you can see that we put artwork on the side of our satellites, which you can just about see on the solar panels there. We have an artist in residence who paints our ground stations and paints our satellites and put arts everywhere. Wherever we have clean space, he puts art on it. And this picture captured that, which was really fantastic. So we've actually deployed 6 more satellites this morning, and they've all woken up just fine, so they're healthy thus far. So it's been an exciting week. We've got even more exciting news to announce. This is another picture of those satellites a bit further away with the Earth in the background. We have a network of ground stations around the world to receive the imagery down. So we have 10 stations like this. This one is in New Zealand. So inside there is a 5-meter parabolic dish antenna that steers towards the satellite as it goes overhead, and the satellite steers towards it to maximize the link. So it's taking pictures when it's over land, but then when it gets to a ground station, it points to the ground station and beams the pictures back, essentially. And these are the kind of images that we get down. So this is an image in Brazil. Basically, our images are about 3 to 5 meters per pixel. So you can see a tree, but you can't see a person. This is something that we care a lot about because we're not trying to get into areas of personal privacy or military significance. What we're trying to do is scan the Earth for big-scale changes, like things that help with agriculture and deforestation. So we can just about see large vehicles, we can see any buildings, and we can certainly count every tree on the planet every single day. This is Beijing Airport. This is in Lhasa in Tibet. This gives you a bit of a sense. This is a football stadium there of the resolution of the images. This is in Yunnan in China. It's very familiar. All in China, there's these blue roofs. It's really beautiful. Here's in Texas, also zoomed in. And here's a Landsat picture to give you an illustration of how the deforestation monitoring will work. This is Landsat. That was the big satellite from NASA that I showed earlier. This is the most recent picture taken of this forested area. Our image taken just recently. And if I go back and forth, you can see how we can see the deforestation. And you can just imagine how we can literally count every single tree on the planet every single day and then detect that deforestation and alert local folks about that. Similarly, we can tell urban change around the world. There's a huge amount of cities being built. This picture is the latest image of a town in Texas. I think it's Dallas. And this is our image. And if I go back and forth, you can see that this bridge was built, right? Everywhere around the world we look, we see changes like this. And of course, we can just do an automatic change detection algorithm to see all those changes as they come. We can see new buildings as they come up, new roads to help update our road maps. And so basically, we can detect urban change as it happens around the whole planet, in every city, around the whole planet every day. This is a photo in China, and I didn't have this same one for that. And you might say, what happens on a day-to-day basis? So these are 2 images taken by a satellite one day and the next. And obviously, the first thing you notice is that we detected this fire. So one of the things we can tell around the planet every day is detect floods, fires, earthquakes, tsunamis, things like that, and help the relief operations for those. So we detected this fire, but if you look closely in the 2 images, back and forth, you will see with the way I circled them, that just in this 24-hour period, you can also see that those fields that are circled have been tilled. So we can see agricultural developments like this in every field around the world every day and help farmers to decide when to plant crops, what to plant, when to sow, when to harvest, etc., etc. And so satellite imagery like this can be used to improve agricultural yield by about 20 to 40%, and that can be used, especially in developing countries, to be very significant for helping them to get the food and nutrition that they require. Disaster response. So just recently with the Nepalese earthquake, we donated all of our data to the relief operations there. And we had basically an online crowdsourced project to scan through all of our images to see where there were affected areas. And 2 towns were found that were literally not on the map. The folks from the aid workers, including from NATO, were able to send relief to 2 towns that no one had even realized were literally weren't on the map and had been affected by mudslides from the earthquake. And so this was the first time we actually saw our data in action, and it was a really pleasing moment for us because so much has been theoretical and it's taken us years to build these satellites and put them into orbit. And this is the first time the data hit the ground and helped people in a real way. And so that was an extremely pleasing moment for us. But obviously, the general point here is that by seeing all these changes around the planet every day, we can hopefully help a lot more people in this kind of way. This is really the tip of the iceberg. Oops. So I wanted to tell you two things. Firstly, that we are putting our data online, and you can go and it's in a sort of very early phase of allowing people to get access to this imagery. Our goal is to democratize access to imagery about the changing planet. But if you're interested in developing applications on top of our data, you can go and sign up here at planet.com/explorers. So if you're a developer, I highly encourage that. But now let me just share a piece of significant news that we just announced today, which is that we, as a company, have just acquired Blackbridge Rapid Eye, which is a company that's based here in Berlin, and which has been operating for the last 7 years, a fleet of 5 satellites. They have a huge archive of data, and one of the things, we can update the world more often if we launch more satellites, but it's very difficult to go backwards in time. And so with their archive of data, we can help to train our algorithms, and it's a fantastic data archive, as well as they've got a network of partners all around the world. But perhaps most interesting for you guys, we'll have a presence here, a significant presence actually, here in Berlin. And we'd encourage you to reach out, to get in touch with them if you're interested in participating. But I'm really pleased to be announcing this partnership that we're acquiring Rapid Eye. I just wanted to end with a couple of thoughts. So back on the Earth, Buckminster Fuller coined the phrase that we were on spaceship Earth. The point being that this planet is hurtling around the sun, just like a spaceship, and we are passengers on that spaceship as it's hurtling around the sun. And just like people on a spaceship that's going around the Earth, you have to take care of the closed-loop life support systems on that spaceship. You have to be careful with your food and carbon dioxide levels and so forth. So we too have to take care of our spaceship. It's a rather bigger spaceship, but it's still got finite resources. And I really love this analogy. When I think about the future, I think about what people will do, what people will think people did before having this data. So I often have conversations with my friends, I'm sure you do too, of what did we do before the internet? How did we find information? What did we do before smartphones? How did we find each other? What did we do before Uber? How did we get a taxi so quickly? Well, I've been thinking, what would we do, we might be having conversations with our children one day. What did we do before we had information about the whole planet every day, such that we could actually help stop deforestation or stop these problems? And so I just wanted to leave you with that thought that hopefully one day we won't have to question, what's going on, because all that data will be out there, readily available for everyone to access and make smarter decisions to help us to take care of our beautiful spaceship Earth. So with that, thank you very much.
Thanks so much.
Yeah.
Okay, we do. We have time maybe for 1 or 2 questions, if you guys want. Just briefly, because then I'll leave you with Will. Also, what I do want to mention is there's a villa here with art, which some people didn't really see yet. They told me, really, there's a villa. So next door, full of art. There's also the ground floor with art installations. And then tonight we're going to have live music program and barbecue up until late. And now we take the question for Will.
Yes, go ahead. Okay, so we get them into space on other people's rockets. Basically, we squeeze our satellites into spare capacity on rockets. We separate them out a long track along the orbit using differential drag. So basically, we can fly like this into the velocity vector with our solar arrays, or fly like this. And then that difference in drag with a small amount of atmosphere, still at these altitudes, enables us to spread the satellites around. So there's no propulsion on board, but we can still position the satellites around in their orbit. Any other questions? Yes.
Hi, man. I have a... Ich habe hier ein Mic. Yes.
Where's the what come from? Where's the money for the data? Oh, demand. Okay, sorry. Where's the demand for the data? Sorry, I couldn't hear what you said. The demand for the data is coming from mapping companies, agricultural companies, lots of different companies. There's people in insurance, oil and gas, energy and utilities. Lots of people want to track changes around the planet. Yes? Franchise the seasons? Okay, you asked me afterwards. Any other question? Yes? What about the satellites that are dysfunctional? Slowly these satellites decay because of atmospheric drag, and eventually they hit the upper atmosphere and just decay. So they burn up in the upper atmosphere. Yes? Say that again. From the satellites? It's not quite live because we... When can that happen? Okay, it's hard enough to do what we're currently doing. Give us a couple more years. Okay, any last question? Okay, thanks everyone.